podcast. Welcome, listeners, gather near with tales of old that you'll want to hear. With Tor, Mike, and Tyson, your host today. We dive into myths where legends sway.
Welcome to the Full-Grown Pizza Podcast, where conspiracies brew and legends outlast. From cryptids to secrets, our journey is vast. Today we explore Atlantis past.
So join us now. Let the stories unfold. Through ancient myths and secrets told, this is the podcast taking its flight, revealing Atlantis, lost in the night, lost in the night.
Okay, we are back, and we should be all good to go. All right, welcome to the Full-Grown Pizza Podcast. This is episode 19, and this episode we're going to be talking about Atlantis. So I'm sure that's something that no one's ever heard of before, so it'll be very exciting and new to everybody. No, but we're going to be going into the Full-Grown Pizza Podcast, yes, episode 19 on Atlantis. Make sure to hit the like, follow, and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so you guys know when we go live and are able to catch us every week. Okay, so let's dive into Atlantis. I'm gonna just kind of give like a general overview of it. Just so we have kind of the basics of what it's all about and where it came from and what are some of the kind of general information about Atlantis. So Atlantis kind of came from, or at least where the most credible kind of historical source of it is from Plato's dialogues, which I don't really know how to pronounce it, but Timaeus and Critias, I believe. They were written about around 360 BCE, and Atlantis was basically described as this powerful nation. It existed 9,000 years prior to Plato, so way back when. But he described this nation as a powerful and advanced nation that essentially sank into the sea overnight in a single day and night. There's a lot of kind of debate over whether Atlantis is an actual historical location, or is Atlantis a more philosophical kind of moral thing that lesson that we're supposed to learn. And we're going to kind of dive into some of the main theories of where Atlantis is located, if it is an actual location, and then we'll get into the more out there theories of, what Atlantis was used for and what it could potentially mean. Okay, so Atlantis was, again, we talked about Plato, but according to Plato, Atlantis was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which has generally been interpreted as a place called the Strait of Gibraltar. I can't really pronounce it very well. Which would put Atlantis basically in the Atlantic Ocean. And then, so this is kind of the Strait of Gibraltar. That is the hardest thing for me to say. But on the screen, we've got kind of this in-between area of Spain and Africa, which is basically known as that strait. So that's kind of what Plato was kind of saying. Another thing about Atlantis is that it's been described as being rich in resources. This is an island that rich in resources as water and land. It had really fertile land and minerals, lots of precious metals. One of the interesting things when I was doing some research about this is it was known to have had a metal that's called oral calcum, which was which is basically a like really rare metal that was only in as far as its value is like basically second to gold, and it had kind of this reddish like tint to it, or reddish kind of flash to it when it was it'd kind of shine red in the light. So very interesting metal. Yeah, exactly. And I think Wakanda, a lot of it kind of comes from this like Atlantis. It's very similar, and that's what I was realizing too when I was looking into a lot of this stuff. According to Plato, he says orichalcum, and let's see, I do have a picture here that AI beautifully generated for me. They were saying that the
you use AI. That's disgusting.
What? Oh, I know, terrible. Thank you, AI. I love you. You're not terrible. Don't take me when you take over everything.
It's a sexy man.
Yeah, so according to Plato, orichalcum was second only to gold in value. It was highly prized in Atlantis, and it was used to adorn buildings, and was particularly used on the Temple of Poseidon, which is what we got here, a nice, beautiful statue of Poseidon and his nipple glowing in the sun.
The sun behind him. Don't. Gosh, AI so hard.
I don't know. I like to think that he's got shiny nips. I think I like that better.
It's over his shoulder. How is that his nip?
It could be. It's the angle of the camera.
It's the angle. His nip on the other pec, though.
Yeah, it's true. He only has one shiny nip.
Hey, how many shiny nips do you have?
None. That's why I'm not a Greek god. If only I had a shiny nip, I would be a Greek god. That's the only requirement. Yeah, exactly. Need to put like a shiny like gem in there, or calcum. I need to put a little thing
like
of
one of those
like
flashlights that you put in ice cubes.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, or calcum was described as being shown with the color of fire, and it was like this brass kind of material. Some experts say that it's like a brass-like alloy made from copper and zinc, or maybe copper and tin. It was like a mix of some other metals.
So it's like the in-game metal, or like the sword you want.
Right, exactly. Like it's not like one particular thing. It's probably like a mix of some different like metal alloys. We already kind of talked about how Atlantis was, described as a very advanced society. They had, advanced technology, advanced systems, how they operated. Sorry, I've got a freaking fly in my room that's pissing me off. It was also known for its circular layout with the Temple of Poseidon in the middle of it. Let me see. Oh, I don't have a picture for that. Okay. Yeah, so it had a circular kind of layout with rings that were like divided by different, divided by like water and stuff. So really kind of cool pictures out there of like what people think it might look like. And
like it had a bunch of canals in it.
Yeah, it was like a bunch of ringed kind of canals between these circles.
Think of Attack on Titan, but instead of walls, it's canals.
Yes, that's actually a really good, really good visual if you've seen Attack on Titan. And then just kind of getting through the last of the overview of Atlantis. Some people think that this is all kind of a philosophical allegory, and that it was it's really meant to demonstrate like the moral decay of like society and cities. Plato narrates that as the Atlanteans grew powerful, their ethics basically declined, and this led to essentially a divine sort of punishment, and they faced catastrophic natural disasters, earthquakes, and floods, which basically led to their downfall. So because of that, a lot of scholars do kind of take this as more of a philosophical thing, saying that it's more of a warning of the dangers of moral decay, and like letting power corrupt your nation and all of that stuff.
Too proud.
Yeah, so
take note, America.
I know. I mean, it is kind of like, you got to think though. I mean, America's getting, we're like most powerful nation in the world, and a lot of people do say that our morality has been in decline, as we've gotten gotten more powerful and technologically advanced and
I'm
all
one
that
of those
stuff.
people.
I'm
I
one
say
of
that
I'm one of
shit.
those people too. It amazes me some of the things I see on you know, on TV or on YouTube or whatever, and I'm like, oh my god, like kids watch this stuff, like holy crap, like.
All right, we're switching to the political podcast now, guys.
Well, okay, yeah,
No,
but
it's okay.
one thing I do need to say that is topical, that is kind of recent on that, is I don't know if you guys have watched the Olympic Open ceremony. Did you guys watch that at all?
No.
I didn't
No.
even realize the Olympics was going on.
Okay,
until I
part
saw,
of
like,
the-
videos I'm like, oh yeah, Olympics.
Yeah, so part of the reason we couldn't do an episode last week is because I was really, really, really busy working on Olympic stuff at work, and not just Olympic stuff, but back to school stuff and all that too. So, anyways, the opening
What are you going back to
ceremony.
school for?
Well, I'm going back to school for kindergarten because I need to start over. No, but just in general, it's not me going back. Anyways, crap, threw me off. Oh yeah, Olympic opening ceremony. So a lot of people, and you can look this up, but a lot of people are saying like how satanic it is because the imagery and stuff that they had in there, they basically
Yeah,
had.
I've seen all the anti-Christian stuff.
Yeah. So
The
that's
Last
just
Supper
kind of
and stuff.
yeah, with the Last Supper, like some characters being like inverted and like the hand signs and stuff being completely different, and like all the, you know, LGBT sort of stuff and the way that they are, you know, perverting it and whatnot. So there's a lot of people, that's just kind of an example of a lot of people saying, look at, you know, we are morally in decline and stuff, and they're, you know, turning this imagery into something that's completely different. So anyways, that's kind of a modern day recent example of, you know, something along those lines. Okay, so getting into some of the possible locations of Atlantis that I was able to find. So we've got one that is Santorini, Greece, and this picture of Santorini, Greece came from the Visit Greece website. So thank you. Anyway, so one theory posits that the story of Atlantis may have been inspired by Minoan civilization on the island of Santorini. So this was formerly known as Thera. The island suffered a catastrophic volcanic eruption around 1600 BC, and that could have inspired legends about a sunken city, and they believe that that may have kind of developed into what we know as the Lost City of Atlantis. So that's a possibility there as well. This is kind of a picture of Greece and kind of where Santorini is located. The island of that is kind of, you can see in the very top, the top right of the picture there. It's located at the very bottom, kind of in that little red circle. Another possible location of it is a place called Cadiz, Spain. I hope I'm not pronouncing that too terribly. But yeah, so this hypothesis kind of suggests that Atlantis could be located.
Cadiz, Spain,
Yeah,
are so
Cadiz.
off at you right now.
I know our whole Spanish audience just hates us now. They're turning off the stream. They're unsubscribing. Oh man, terrible. I'm so sorry, you guys. Anyways, just take all of these enunciations and pronunciations with a grain of salt, because I am the whitest person alive. So. Anyways, a U.S.-led research team.
Gracias.
Exactly. U.S.-led research team used satellite images to identify a submerged site near Cadiz, or Cadiz, whatever, which exhibits geographical features and could match descriptions of Atlantis. So this is kind of another possibility thing. The site was reportedly affected by massive tsunamis that could account for the sudden destruction of the city. So it's another possibility. I believe I have one other picture. Yeah, so there's kind of Cadiz on the map anyway. So again, it's in that southern area of the Strait of Gibraltar. I'm just gonna cue you to say that every time it comes up. But you can see it's like right between Mexico, my God, right between Africa and Spain. I'm ruining our entire audience, like all the Mexicans, all the Spanish, all the Africans, everybody, all the Greek people, everybody, just This is your chance. Hate me, unsubscribe. This is your reason.
That one's outside the state of Gibraltar.
Wait, before you hate and unsubscribe, leave a comment.
Yeah, leave a comment as to how pissed off you are with how terrible I'm doing. Okay, but you can kind of see it's in that general area. Like a lot of these areas that are in discussion are kind of in that general area, which is kind of interesting, kind of cool. Okay, another option for the possible location of Atlantis is Cyprus, and one of the main guys that kind of talks about this and is a guy named Robert Sarmast, and he essentially claimed discovery of massive man-made structures under the sea that are pretty close to what Plato describes in his dialogues as to what Atlantis looks like. So we've got here's like a general map of what we're talking about here, and this comes from his book Discovery of Atlantis: The Startling Case for the Island of Cyprus. And it's
kind of circular almost, I guess.
Yeah, there's other maps that kind of show that are more of like a geographical looking map with where you can kind of see like the rock formations and everything. But he essentially thought that this might be an area, and this is a image of, I believe, the like sunken kind of area with the weird like structures and stuff. And really the main thing that is kind of note here from what I could tell is like how linear everything is. Like I don't think I grabbed any other pictures of it, but yeah, there's like very like straight lines and stuff, which is not something that you find in nature due to just natural, erosion of the rock surfaces. So that's another possibility. Another one that's been really popular as of late, especially with like the Joe Rogan podcast and all that stuff, is the Richat structure. Yeah. This is known as the Eye of the Sahara, and it's kind of like a circular. It is like a circular feature in the desert of. Oh man, I'm gonna ruin this one too. This is another one for the people of Africa. Are you ready for this one?
Oh,
Mauritania. All right.
That's pretty good.
Leave your comments. And
leave the correct pronunciation in the comments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so this is known as the Eye of Sahara, and yeah, it's been speculated to be Atlantis due to the rings and the size. You can see the rings in the picture there.
I think you mean the Eye of Ciara.
Oh, yep, you're right. Yeah. And so, okay. It's also believed to align with a lot of Plato's descriptions of kind of what it would have looked like and stuff. The main proponent of this location, his name is Joe Rogan. No, no. The guy's name is Jimmy Corsetti, and he focuses a lot on this location. He's actually got a YouTube channel that I highly recommend. I've only watched a few episodes based on this kind of topic, but he's got tons of other content too. It's called Bright Insight.
Does he live in his van?
Man, I don't know. You're gonna have to ask him.
If he lived in his van while he was doing, I'd probably watch it. That's cool.
But you don't think he doesn't have enough credibility unless he lives in his van?
Yeah.
I mean, I get that. If you haven't given your life to this theory, then how can we really trust you?
I mean, that's the type of stuff I watch. It's like, oh, this guy travels the world, lives in his van. That's cool.
Fair. Man, we need a full-grown pizza podcast van. That's what we need.
Yeah. And it'll look like the Ninja Turtle van.
We're gonna, you know what? Go to the description below. We've got a link to our Buy Me a Coffee link, and we will start funding a van, a full-grown pizza podcast van that we can live out of, and we'll just do podcast episodes in the van.
Oh yeah, I would 100% do that.
That would be awesome, actually. That would be
especially
really
if it was
badass.
the Ninja Turtle van. Yes.
We all got our own van and still did it remotely.
Yeah, dude, that would be so cool.
We could travel to these locations and do the podcast from them.
For real.
Yeah,
we just
has to go to the location,
live from location, just like, and here we are at the Richat structure of Mauritania. Here we are.
That'd be cool to see in person, though.
That would be awesome, actually. I think it'd be really cool.
How big it is. I mean, you can't really tell from the picture what the size is.
Get us the van, and we'll go to Atlantis and broadcast from there. We're gonna go find
Atlantic
it.
City and
Oh yeah.
Real quick,
Oh,
guys, is my scene changing or is it not? Like, do you guys see the pictures I'm
I see
showing?
the picture.
I'm seeing the
shot of-
pictures.
Oh, okay. Weird. My little preview thing on YouTube's not updating for some reason.
It doesn't say how
okay.
big it is though.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
gonna
no
tell
real
from the
size
picture.
comparison. But
That's
I'm
fair.
betting that's pretty
I mean, it
big.
pretty
It looks
decent
like
size. I mean, I
mountains.
heard you can see it from the space station. So
Yeah, I
that'd be
think
pretty
this
big.
picture actually is a NASA picture. So,
A nasty pig.
yeah. So that's a NASA image of it. Essentially, this guy Jimmy Corsetti, he incorporates a lot of
That Asa, huh?
yeah, he incorporates a lot of modern geological studies to kind of show the significant changes in sea levels, like between these circles and everything, these rings. And
Why is it blue? Is that water?
I believe that's salt, the white
Yeah, I think
kind
it's
of ish. I think
salts.
those are salt deposits, which is another kind of line of evidence
Indicator that it was under
indicator.
the ocean at one time.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and this kind of supports the possibility of it being an inhabitable region. We also, one of the things that's mentioned is that, back, several thousands of years ago, right, like 14,000 years ago, when this probably would have, been Atlantis, it would have been, it was totally different. I mean, it was more of a tropical area, and so it's entirely possible that this could have been Atlantis as well. That I highly recommend checking out that YouTube channel because there's
Las
tons
Vegas
of info.
used to be like a hot spring and like a little oasis.
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of info on that YouTube channel, and I didn't want to just like go line by line and rip everything that they said. So, so I highly recommend you go check them out. This is just kind of general overview of possible Atlantis locations right now, so I don't want to go too in depth on it, but yeah, this seems like a very highly probable place of where Atlantis could have been. It's also
description pretty good. So
yeah, it's also probable that it could have been destroyed by seismic activity. There's a nearby volcano in the region. You can see in the bottom left corner, there's like all this charred area that kind of like gets lined off right here, which could also be because of the water is why it gets lined off right there. And so tons of possibilities. It's also not that far from the the coast of Africa, so tsunami could have also been a likely explanation as to how they got destroyed. So okay, so those are kind of the possible Atlantis locations. We talked about more of the general stuff. Now I want to get into, like, first of all, what are your guys' thoughts on all of that, and then let's get into more of the interesting alien theories and dark pyramid stuff.
Well,
I'll be back in a second. I gotta take
You
care
know
of
that
this real
Plato
quick.
actually heard about that from the
hurts.
Egyptians. You heard about that from like a long time ago. So it's like older than they think. So
Yeah, exactly. So that's the other thing too,
I mean,
is that
that lines up with the time frame for that Eye of Africa. So I mean, it'd been pretty green
and
back then.
Egypt
so.
is along around that area as well, so they would have more.
So we have first-hand knowledge of it.
Yep, they'd have even more information.
I mean, they probably were trading partners with Atlantis or something, and then.
Exactly.
They also said that Atlantis was they did a lot of like seeding of other civilizations. They did a lot of they're supposed to be the ones that taught like the Mayans agriculture and stuff because they were good sea travelers.
Well, yeah, one of the things that Plato had said in his dialogues about Atlantis is that it was a place where they spoke multiple languages. Like, it was a place where lots of different cultures. Yeah, it was a huge trading hub. Lots of different cultures go in and out of there and are trading, which would make sense because it's not too far off the coast of Africa.
Yeah.
If we are talking about that location, and it would be a good spot for trade.
They had a great harbor or big bay that they had there that was really good for traveling and lots of ships. They had a great navy. They're also very supposed to be very technologically advanced, so they were able to travel pretty far and do like sea travel and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I mean, if they wanted to, they could go to South America.
And I think what you were talking about there, that kind of entrance, is in the top left. If I am correct on that. But you can see there's like a line sort of in the top left that's kind of going straight out of there. I think that could have been like a a natural sort of entrance into the area. And
like where the harbor would have been at.
Right, and that harbor, you can see it kind of goes up to the top left. And if we look at the map of, let's see, wherever we were, kind of here in Africa, so it would be kind of the southern part of, of the image, like south kind of western part of the image, and
Was it next to the Mediterranean or was it next to the Atlantic Ocean? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Interesting.
But so
I mean, it'd make it more plausible if it was outside the Straits of Gibraltar. But
right.
I mean,
Well, and then you got to think that, like we said, Plato, this happened 9,000 years before he was even around. So
I mean, he heard
stuff about people, and they heard stuff. Yeah, so it's entirely possible that they were using the information that they had available to them to say, oh yeah, it was near this place. It's near the Pillars of Hercules. But they really don't know.
Like a great game of telephone, things are going to be the same when they say it,
Right. So we're kind of just going with we're using like general information. I think it's a good idea to say, okay, he said the Pillars of Hercules, which is generally considered this area, but we also have to accept that it might be just in this general area, not not exactly that place.
Another thing you got to consider the climate back then, because like even then the Mediterranean Sea was really low, so maybe the Straits of Gibraltar were back farther, or different
right
kind of location. So
it's exactly.
The climate was totally different back then, so it's hard to really place everything that they said about that. So especially with Atlantis, because I mean everything's changed so much. I mean, if you have a place like that that's next to a huge continent like Africa, and it's like 12,000, 13,000 years ago, people are going to go raid that place, once it, I mean,
for sure.
Artifacts and stuff like that, especially if it's a so-called technologically advanced civilization, they're going to go in there and try to find whether they can and pillage it. Especially if they had oral calcum everywhere,
That's the other thing too. I mean, if they've got, because supposedly that oral calcum resource was actually mined in that region. It was actually found there. It wasn't just something that they had because they were a trading hub. So it's entirely possible. I mean, if you're a powerful region, if you're a powerful, empire or something, and you want to, take control of, you have a vested interest in taking control over a huge trading hub like that, because then you can tax it, you can whatever, you get all the power from that. So
especially if it's been like partially destroyed by like a volcano or something, it's be pretty weak, and you can just go over and take it over pretty easy.
You could take advantage of that kind of situation. That's entirely possible.
Got it.
A catastrophic natural disaster could have led to something like, okay, now they're a weakened empire, let's go take advantage of it, and then whoever conquers gets to control the flow of history, right? They could have just left themselves out of it. Who knows?
Just wipe the whole thing off the map so nobody knew.
History belongs to the victorious.
Exactly. So I mean, that's entirely possible too. Okay, so let's hop into.
Let's say everything we said again, so I can get.
Let's restart.
Yes.
No, I mean we were essentially just talking about the possibility
I heard
of it
most
being
of it.
there.
I was out in the living room.
Okay, cool.
Can I find the bandages? What the fuck happened to those things?
Okay, so Tor, what are your kind of thoughts on those locations? What are your thoughts on Atlantis so far? What do you think?
I don't like the locations because it disproves that Atlantis was involved with the lost colony of Roanoke.
Oh, dang. You're right.
But if they get time travel, they can do it whenever they want, so.
It's true. Well, maybe it was the time travelers who went back in time, and maybe they destroyed Atlantis.
I mean, they were technologically advanced. They could time travel whenever they wanted, so. I mean.
Yup. Oh, my God. Oh, okay. Here we go. What if it was the time travelers that went back? They got the lost colony of Roanoke people, and they had them go into Atlantis to wipe it out, to steal the whatchamacallit, whatever that material is, oral calcum, because the oral calcum or the orichalcum
Raritanium
that's what
is
they were after the first
that's
place,
what they were after, and maybe that's the material that
So the Roanoke colony is rich
Maybe
in
that's
it
what you
too?
need to time travel. Maybe that's why we can't do it anymore.
Maybe. Or maybe the Roanoke colony.
I don't think we can make coral calcum anymore. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Well, it's not really
vibrating frequencies. That's perfect for time travel.
Maybe it's a time travel material. Holy crap!
Yeah, like that one stuff they use on UFOs. That what is it called? I forget, but some mineral or some element they barely found like 8 years ago, and that one guy said that talked about like 13 years ago or something.
Oh yeah. That element that, gosh, who's that guy? The Lazar guy or whatever. Bob Lazar, yeah, that he was talking about.
They use the power of the engines in the UFOs, but I forget what it's called now. It's something like element 131 or something like that.
Yeah, and then they actually end up finding it or something. Yeah,
Bob Lazar. That's like a song right by itself.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's interesting that he came out with it, or he talked about it like years before they actually discovered it, or actually were able to prove it existed.
Well, and then this kind of goes back to a lot of things that we've touched on in other episodes, where, like the sound theory episode, and we were talking about how certain crystals and stuff could potentially have certain resonant frequencies that cause, that influence different things or move objects or whatever. It's entirely possible that like we don't interpret these materials, we don't utilize these materials in the same ways that people used them in the past, right? We think of like forging things and crafting things and whatnot, but they could have thought of it as like, okay, what is this resonance?
Put about the pottery in ancient Egypt, how the older it gets, the more advanced it is.
No, I haven't heard about that. What's that?
You didn't see that?
I don't think so.
It's crazy. They talk about how like there's eggshell thin granite pottery that's perfectly symmetrical. It's like closer than we can do with machines nowadays.
Wow.
And like there's no way to, like, we would cast a pot, Yeah. They had to grind it out somehow by hand. And then they had these like posts in it to put like rods through so you carry it.
Yeah.
And there's no way you can grind that out. You have to do that it's just crazy how they had how uniform it was, how thin it was.
Watch the video after the podcast.
Like the granite they used was like almost as hard as diamonds. So
wow.
And
yeah, that's crazy.
The older you go, the better they are.
Well, it's interesting to think about how just a shift in perspective and like a shift in your mindset and how you think about, how something can be used or utilized, like how that can really change the outcome and result that you get. Because, I mean, back then, they're thinking more about like symmetry and things like that. They're thinking about like how these materials can be used vibrationally and in terms of resonance and stuff, like stuff that we don't even think about nowadays with like modern scientific theory and everything. So it's really interesting how I wonder if we adapted kind of that mindset, if we had a different field of science that was like, we're going to approach these things from a completely different perspective and just see where things go. I wonder how much,
Yeah, it's like they went on a whole different tech tree than we did. Like we went all machine powered and they went like all vibrationally and sound powered. And
exactly.
Figured out how to make like those stones in that wall in the Inca Sacsayhuaman, where they look like they all melted together almost, and they're.
Yep.
I mean, why would you take the biggest stones you could find to make a wall out of when you could just do it with brick just as easy?
Yeah, like brick to brick or something. But, yeah.
I mean, you had to take a large stone, take it to the place, then shape it. Why would you do it that way? That's like the worst way.
That's so much more work, at least unless they had a better way.
Unless you had a technology that made that easy.
Exactly. Yeah.
You had to have something to float the stones.
Right.
And you had to have something to make it so it would fit into that shape, and then another way to meld them together. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have this idea in their head that like these historic and like ancient civilizations were just like stupid. But I don't think they were stupid. They just
figure out today.
Yeah, they just prioritized learning in a completely different way than we did. Like, nowadays we're very communication based. We're always thinking about like how do we develop technology to make communication better? Social media, the internet, telephones, TV, radio, all that stuff. Like, we're very communication based, but they seem to have been completely different, right? Like, they weren't, not everybody, would read and write. It wasn't like something that everybody did back in that time. And so obviously they had different values. They had different things that they, that they focused on, and it led to different results and different outcomes that we can't even process today because we don't have that kind of mindset. Anyways, let's get into kind of, I liked what Tor was mentioning about the, time travel and all that stuff. So let's get into some of more like crazy, weird theories. One theory is that Atlantis was actually a colony established by aliens. Or potentially that they were involved with Atlantis in the sense that, they helped with technological advancement and things like that in addition to like trade of resources and whatnot. Maybe they had an interest in this orichalcum material as well. And so they helped them with technology. They helped to give them kind of, the information they needed to create certain things and to be as advanced of a society as they were. So that's one of the theories. Another theory that I really like is that Atlantis, and we asked, this was our last episode, we kind of ended with this, I think, where we said that Atlantis could have been, maybe this was after the episode we talked about it, but that Atlantis could have also been a spaceport, because we were talking about how, that if they've got lots of energy and whatnot and technological advancements and stuff, it's likely aliens were involved. And maybe, if the aliens are involved, it could be a whole dark pyramid situation. It could be, maybe Atlantis was a spaceport.
Maybe that's what destroyed Atlantis. Maybe the dark pyramid went crazy and like reached critical mass and just blew up, and there goes Atlantis.
I wonder.
Atlantis is a dark pyramid Chernobyl.
Yeah.
It could have been. That is a very good theory. I like that.
Black pyramid implosion.
It is a black pyramid mistake, or an issue that went wrong. Yeah, that's
Look
possible.
for high levels of radiation underwater. That's where you're gonna find Atlantis.
Ooh. Yeah, I like
that.
that.
Not doing radiation that we could detect. I mean, we can't detect the dark pyramids, so.
I also wonder if, since the aliens were involved, and if this really was a spaceport for aliens, just like the other dark pyramid locations, if it's a spaceport, it probably has a dark pyramid. We can assume that as much based on the other episodes and theories we've come up with. And if this dark pyramid was so central to the region and the area, what if the Men in Black, as the interstellar, alien police, governmental agency, whatever, they decided that, hey, we need to cover this up. We can't just have this dark pyramid out in the open.
Yeah.
Just like the other dark pyramids, they're hidden, they're underground, they're submerged underwater. Like, we can't just have this out in the open. What are we going to do? We need to cover it up. So maybe what they did is they used seismic, seismic technology to bring it under the water, or they used a tsunami or something to submerge it underwater. However they did it, but maybe it was an attempt to conceal the existence of the Dark Pyramid rather than an actual destruction of Atlantis. So maybe they had like a thing where they could bring it underground, right? And then the sand kind of covered it up as it went underground.
Say Atlantis was like a huge, instead of like a city that's actually there, it's a huge like a UFO or something that's actually like city sized, and it's floating above the Dark Pyramid. And when they're done getting all the orichalcum out, they move it off because they don't need it anymore, and so they destroy the Dark Pyramid or cover it up with like a seismic activity, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe it was a cover up. Maybe they got what they needed from the Atlanteans, and they said, okay, now you're a liability because you might tell people about us. You might.
So like that back picture is not really the city remains, but the like mining excavation remains.
Yeah, okay.
And then they left.
So what?
They found this metal that's so precious to them.
Yep.
And then they left it.
And if orichalcum if, you know, we can assume, we already know it's a valuable metal according to humanity, but we don't know necessarily its purpose other than it was used to just like be pretty. But yeah, what if it's a time travel thing, or it helps with space travel in some way, shape, or form? If it allows us to reach you know, light speed in some way, or you know, if it has something to do with like wormholes or whatever, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with space travel or time travel, and the aliens are traveling around trying to get as much of it as they can. You know, they need this stuff.
Not a very popular metal. I mean, it's pretty rare in the universe, so they got to find what resources they can, and so they go, you know,
And
put this big mining colony / UFO and put it over the area, mine it up, and you know, people think it's just another city, so maybe they like disguise themselves while they're there. And then when they get done, they leave. They take the whole UFO because it's a huge mining colony that can float or fly. And then they get the men in black there to cover it up with like a tsunami or, you know, seismic activity. Maybe set off a volcano there.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, it's getting deep. oh man, I was gonna mention something about the minute. Oh yeah. So I mean, I didn't look into this, so I don't know if it's true or not, or if it's possible. But I haven't heard of orichalcum or from any other culture or region or anything like that. And as far as we're aware, as far as I'm aware, Atlantis may have been one of the only locations that actually mined this. You know, so it could be an incredibly rare resource, not just for them in that time period, but also for the whole world. You know, it could be something incredibly rare like that, and this could have been a whole like psyop thing where the men in black actually just integrated themselves into the culture of the Atlantean civilization. They mined up all the resources, let the Atlanteans use, you know, some of it, so they felt like they were, you know, they still had autonomy over it and everything, but really they were siphoning the vast majority of it for themselves. And then once they had no reason, you know, no need for it anymore, they covered it up. Just like the government covers up things, you know, governments all across the world cover up things. So I don't know. That's entirely possible. But the other possibility, kind of like what we talked about last week, is that maybe it's still functional. You know, maybe Atlantis is underwater, but it's still a functional thing. I mean, we have tons of reports of UFOs that are going under the water or that are seen coming out of the water. And, you know, it's entirely possible. One of the things, I believe, Mike, maybe you mentioned this, but did you mention something about a dark pyramid being in like the Marianas Trench or something like that, or the Bermuda Triangle?
A lot of people think that maybe a dark pyramid could be possible, or a possible reason for the Bermuda Triangle.
Right.
And if he wanted to hide something that big, he put it in like the Mariana Trench because it's like the deepest place on the Earth.
Right.
And we can't even get down there yet. So, I mean, if you're gonna hide a big space or sea station underneath the ocean, then you go under. I mean, you can go to outer space, so going under the ocean is not that big a deal. So, either go deeper than the people around you can follow, and then that way you'll be hidden all the time. You don't have to worry about anything.
Right. So if we went with that, then it's safe to assume that these dark pyramids are waterproof, or at least that they are capable of functioning underwater. So
I mean, or you just build it and put a dome over it. I mean, I'm sure if you could build a city underwater that big, I mean, I'm sure that's not a big problem for you. So
yeah. And while the dark pyramids, since they're like this blackish, you know, color, they're probably not made with the orichalcum, but maybe they're powered by this resource, right? Like maybe what the dark pyramid's made out of is meant for like concealment, and maybe it's meant to.
Or like the dark pyramid causes like a certain vibration, and the orichalcum reacts to that and causes energy to come out. So it's like the receptor for the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe you need both. Maybe you need both orichalcum and you need the other material. Yeah. So
one's the generator and the other one's the receptor. So
that would make sense because something to create the energy, something to store the energy or amplify the energy. I mean, there's multiple pieces to it, and that would make sense because we can say, you know, maybe so. Like that one example when we were talking about the Dark Pyramid, you brought up I think a farmer or something that had like a little piece of this, like could power his farm or something. But imagine
a small model that powered his whole farm. So
yeah, and imagine if he had like orichalcum that could interface with that, or
aluminum, so.
Right, and so who knows what that could have been or what that could have led to. But it's entirely possible that Atlantis is still going strong. It's still fully functional. It's just underwater as a spaceport. And this is what the Men in Black have been using it for this whole time, but they needed to conceal it. They couldn't just keep it up above ground.
I mean, maybe Atlantis they weren't afraid of the people then, so they just floated on top of the ocean and didn't care if everybody saw them. And then, these people are getting a little too advanced, a little too nosy, so let's go underwater for a while. Yeah, so it sunk.
And so they've just remained there, and they've stayed there, safe for operation.
Atlantis sunk under the ocean, and they did sink under the ocean and went down to the Mariana Trench and just stayed there.
And if the orichalcum is something that's mined, it's a mined material. Maybe for purposes of getting more orichalcum, they need to go underground to get more and more. They have to dig deeper and deeper to get it. And so maybe they have another vested interest of like, okay, we need to continue to go under the ground so we can continue to follow this strain of orichalcum. I don't know. It's possible. Tor, our expert guest, what do you think?
Fell asleep as
Oh.
I was just listening. I don't.
What are your thoughts? Do you have any theories to contribute to this? Any what ifs? No. Okay. As a scientific expert,
maybe that orichalcum mostly forms underground, and that's why they went into the ocean and the trench and stuff, because it's below the crust of the earth, and it rarely forms on top of the crust. And
it needs like deep pressure like that,
Yeah. It supports more of the hollow earth theory, and like there's like more stuff going on underneath.
But yeah, because like with these dark pyramids, they seem to be underground in some capacity, whether it's underwater or it's under the ground.
They gotta tap into the Earth's vibration, so underground is the best place to put them.
Yeah. So they're underground. What if you've got the deeper and deeper you go, the closer we get to this whole hollow Earth theory of the aliens are actually in the Earth, and they're just further and further down, and they're using these dark pyramids to power everything. Inside, it's not like they can harness the electricity or whatever from the clouds or from lightning. So they're using these dark pyramids to harness and power everything, their whole civilization in the hollow Earth. And they're also ports of entry for other alien races and civilizations to make their way into the hollow Earth or whatever, or to just fuel up.
Trading hubs for the aliens, they just trade their own.
Maybe there's a transport system or like a fast travel system, with these dark pyramids. You show up, you park your UFO, and you get out, you go into the dark pyramid or whatever.
Like a beacon for a wormhole generator. You concentrate on that one dark pyramid, and you just wormhole to that, and that's how you find your way around Earth. You want to go to Alaska, you concentrate on that dark pyramid. You want to go to Bermuda or the Bahamas or Bermuda Triangle, you concentrate on that dark pyramid.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's probably one in the hollow Earth, and it's like, okay, here are your ports of entry. Then you teleport over to the hollow Earth, and you get to get all your orichalcum, everything you need, whatever, and then take off, go back to the Bermuda Triangle and get out of there.
Dark side of the moon, the other wormholes out there. So.
Yeah, dude, I like this theory. This is cool. And what's interesting and what I like about this podcast is that we've always find a way to build off of our own theories. Like we're tying a lot of these other episodes together. We have no evidence, and that's the fun part about this whole episode, about this whole
We always
podcast.
go back to the dark pyramids.
Yeah.
That's something that nobody really knows about, but it's pretty interesting that they had dark pyramids.
But it makes sense, and it ties everything together in a way that has, where you don't need any evidence. So
if you think about it, if you're going to do inter universal travel, you're going to need a lot of energy. So
yeah.
mean, you can't go around refueling everywhere. You're gonna have to set up refueling stations. You can't just go like to an undeveloped planet and just.
That's one of the common critiques about interstellar travel and stuff is that, okay, how could you possibly, you need so much energy per mass, per unit of mass to actually like get yourself a certain distance, right? And how can you produce that much energy for enough mass that can actually carry somebody or keep somebody, in the spacecraft, one person, let alone, a whole crew of people. And so it could be that these like dark pyramids are,
or if you did have the technology for a wormhole generator, that would take a lot of energy too to,
right.
You gotta basically change gravity and make a tunnel.
And you have to like shape, you have to freaking like curve space and time.
Yeah, it's gonna take a lot of, I think the main like stop for us to develop wormhole technology is we don't have the energy manipulation yet.
Right. Yeah, the energy, like how you're gonna fuel that and what it's going to produce it. Yeah. How it's gonna be transportable,
If only they would share their dark pyramid technology with us.
Well, if only.
I feel like that they don't see us like as like anything. There's like we're like basically like termites. Like, there's another one of those fucking human societies or fucking colonies.
Yeah.
They see us like giant termite mounds. It's like disgusting.
We're just like deer, and they're driving by, and occasionally a deer will like have a deer in the headlights moment of like, oh my god, a UFO, and they're just like, oh, keep going, whatever. Drive past them, ignore them.
Yeah. We're like the dangerous fucking termites. We're like fucking fire ants. Like, don't mess with them.
Don't go touch. Yeah, look.
Just leave them alone, and they'll fight each other. And
exactly, they're not that dangerous, but don't mess with them. They're gonna. They still hurt. Yeah, exactly. No, I think you're probably right about that too, because it seems like they don't care enough to really, integrate us in on what they're doing or what they're thinking or why they're here or anything like that. They don't care enough. But you do have some humans that study ants, right? You do have some humans that study ants. And so you probably have some aliens that are going to study the ant, which is the people, the humans. You have some aliens that are abducting people and like, okay, we need to keep tabs on you guys. We still need to research you guys a little bit, see how you're developing, see how things, how are you changing, adaptation, evolution, all that stuff. But the majority of the aliens don't actually care. And we're just kind of a side whatever. We're just ants, like you said.
Wildlife in the forest. So there's
they care more about the planet. They care more about the orichalcum. They care more about
dark pyramids.
Their dark pyramids and utilizing us for those purposes.
Their space station or the spaceships. So
hey, we're not after their metal, so they don't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. And if we were, maybe they would destroy us just like they destroyed Atlantis. I don't know. Or maybe that's the Atlanteans or whoever. Maybe they wiped them out because of that. They're like, all right.
Atlantis was like their first attempt to like actually allow us to use the technology and stuff. And there's like, these guys, fuck it, and they just flushed it down the toilet.
I know. Like, no, maybe they saw. Maybe there was some kind of historical.
Our precious metal that we need for our ships and space travel to make fucking statues and fucking weapons.
and they
basically took the most precious stuff and just smeared it on their walls like fucking shit.
They're using it like they're decorating their houses and their temples with it. Like, what the fuck? They're like, okay, no, we tried explaining to you guys how powerful of a resource this is, and you barely use it for that shit. You just use it to decorate your temples.
Like travel with it, but you guys are using it to.
Somebody got you like a new PC, like a monster PC, and they gave it to you, and you just broke it apart and took the insides out and put it on your walls as decoration. Like,
you just destroyed it, and then you used the power cable to like plug in a speaker or something. It's like that's basically
the power cable to fucking whip your neighbor. Like,
yeah, exactly. They're like, all right, this isn't gonna work. You guys aren't ready for this. Clearly, so we're taking the operation underground. And no, I could totally see that. Like, oh my god. Yeah, that's hilarious. But one of the other things when I was like doing research about this topic and whatnot, I was thinking about how, gosh, what was the episode? I think we were talking about Bigfoot, and one of the things that I brought up is that we just don't have people that are researching this thing. Like we don't have actual researchers that are taking Bigfoot seriously, and
yeah, because we invite ourselves to be on the team.
Right. And so I thought kind of the same thing about Atlantis. Atlantis is just seen as this like legend, if, whatever. And you do have some people that are interested in it, but what if we actually did have people searching for Atlantis? Because I think it's that spirit of adventure and exploration that we've kind of lost in society, right? Because it seems like nowadays we have this mentality of, oh, we're so smart, we're so advanced, we're so whatever, we know everything, we're still discovering things as scientists and whatnot, but we have a really good understanding of everything. And so that gives us kind of this mentality of like, oh, Atlantis, psh, that couldn't possibly be real, whatever. Like we're so egotistical that we just think that these things aren't possible or aren't real. And I think that leads to a mental block, in our minds where we don't have that sense of adventure where we're actually like trying to discover like, lost, a lost city or whatever. Like that's cool.
Like the story of Troy, we thought that was just a myth. And then the guy went and discovered it in Turkey and found all those like artifacts and all that gold and stuff like that. And there was like, well, it was just a story. How'd you find that?
I wish I could remember this or I could look it up or something, but there's like the Spanish explorer, I believe, that spent, I want to say 50 years searching for a sunken like vessel that had lots of treasure and stuff. And he ended up finding it eventually, at the end of his, 50 years or whatever of searching. He actually did find this vessel with tons and tons of treasure. We're talking like millions and millions of dollars worth of treasure. But he had this spirit of adventure that was tied to something that was just, way out of the scope, right? This legendary adventure kind of thing. That spirit of adventure led to something amazing and incredible. Yeah. And I think we need that, even if, and to tie this back into chaos magic and the one episode that we that we had where we were talking about, magic is, if you believe that it's magic and it's working for you, and that belief that it's magic is, giving you that motivation, and that's what's powering your drive to move forward, then yeah, magic is real, right? It's real to that person, and it works for that person. It's kind of the same thing, I think, when it comes to a lot of these legends like Bigfoot or whatever. Even just the idea that Atlantis could be out there, and you have a sincere belief that you are on a mission and an adventure to discover the lost city of Atlantis, that could lead to all sorts of other discoveries and advancements in technology and whatever that you didn't even try for. I mean, a lot of scientific discoveries, a lot of medical research, a lot of stuff that we've discovered over the years usually is a result of something that they weren't actually trying to discover, right? Like, how many times do we hear that, oh, they were doing an experiment on this type of thing with this type of hypothesis, and then they ended up getting a result that actually helps with this other thing that has nothing to do with what they were trying to do, right? I mean, that's a very common thing in science, and I feel like penicillin. I feel like we could amplify that to like, a whole other degree if they weren't just, researching a hypothesis of like, whatever medical hypothesis they're doing, but they had an exciting hypothesis of Atlantis, discovering the lost city of Atlantis. So I asked ChatGPT, I was like, okay, what are some of the benefits that could potentially come from, researching Atlantis and trying to find Atlantis? And so it gave me a few options that I thought were cool. One of them is obviously underwater archaeology. So the hunt for Atlantis. And I actually asked it like what benefits have come from Atlantis research. So I don't know exactly how much of this actually came. We've already realized versus what we could realize, but regardless, I'll read you what it said. So the hunt for Atlantis has fueled advances in underwater archaeology. Techniques developed for exploring submerged structures and landscapes have been applied to discover and study actual sunken cities and shipwrecks. It actually gives an example. So the exploration of potential Atlantis sites in the Mediterranean has led to a better understanding of ancient coastal settlements that were submerged due to rising sea levels or seismic activity. So, I mean, just that in and of itself could lead to better historical understanding of the world back then, which could lead to understanding their mindset, which could lead to how we, interpret science and do things like that, right? And another thing is seafloor mapping. Atlantis-inspired expeditions have contributed to the development of seafloor mapping technologies. These technologies are crucial for understanding seabed geology, which helps in everything from locating underwater resources to understanding earthquake risks. What if this leads to us discovering orichalcum for ourselves, And maybe that's the turning point where the aliens are like, okay, you have now discovered this for yourselves. It's time for us to step in. You guys are ready for us to explain, how this works and what you can do with it. You have Elon Musk now, so whatever.
I'm just picturing like one of those like Sims games or something. It's like you unlocked your calculum technology tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah,
it's like a hidden tree that you have to like do an achievement to unlock or something. Yeah, they're like, okay,
teleportation, awesome. We're gonna research that right now.
Exactly.
The ocean before you find this orichalcum.
Exactly. Yeah, and so or even just earthquake, mitigation, whatever. Plate tectonics.
Yeah.
So the theories about Atlantis' disappearance often involve cataclysmic geological events, which interest geologists, studying plate tectonics, natural disasters. Research into past events can provide insights into Earth's geological activity and predict future changes. Another thing, remote sensing, so searching for underwater ruins believed to be Atlantis, has pushed the enhancement of remote sensing technologies, including sonar and satellite imagery. These tools are invaluable for a broad range of scientific and practical applications, from oceanography to environmental monitoring. So, anyways, I'm just really fascinated with this idea of like using these legends and these like really powerful, concepts of like, an advanced lost civilization, or a bipedal primate species that's giant and whatever, like using these kind of mystical and legendary like stories to really drive the exploration of our scientific and historical and archaeological endeavors. Like I think that could be something that could be a mindset shift that's really powerful and that could lead to a lot of change and development in society if we actually took that kind of thing seriously. And so with that, we have reached our hour mark. What last thoughts and comments do you guys have on Atlantis or anything else that we talked about?
I think Atlantis was probably much older than we think it is, and maybe could have been before. Like you guys heard of the Younger Dryas theory?
No, I don't think so.
It says that about 11,000 to 12,000 years ago, there was a huge comet impact, and it melted most of the ice caps, and so it caused a bunch of flooding and caused a lot of civilizations to get destroyed.
Yeah,
and maybe Atlantis was one of those civilizations that was really advanced back then. So they were really advanced. They had their own little golden age back then, and then everything gets destroyed, and we got to start all over. That's why we get like Babylon and all that stuff again. So maybe it was be older than that, and that's the whole theory, the whole story behind that. And I think with Göbekli Tepe, that actually points to that'd be more valid that the Atlantis was around in that time, because they're saying that Göbekli Tepe is a lot more advanced than they thought people were at that age or that time.
Yeah,
and that just points to more evidence of that. So I think if Atlantis was around, it's probably before then. That's why you say that Egyptians heard about it like before they even got around, they were pretty ancient, you know.
Yeah.
And at this point to the age, and I think Atlantis could be a very advanced culture that got destroyed during the Younger Dryas thing, and maybe that's why we can't find any trace of it, because it got. I mean, it basically got. I mean, civilization got wiped out. So I mean, how many traces are you gonna find of it? You know, it's just a big thing. So.
Another thing that kind of came to mind when you were talking about that is we talked about in our episode about the blondes, where they're very, you know, peace driven and hippy dippy kind of, you know, alien race, whatever. And that the Men in Black is, you know, likely involved with them, obviously, because they're involved with all alien visits here and whatnot. And it makes me think that, you know, we shouldn't just discount the whole moral decay aspect of what Plato was talking about in the dialogues as well, and that he was saying that these, you know, that this society and this culture, they were, you know, super corrupt with their power and the technological advancements and everything. I wonder if the alien races or the Men in Black or whatever got to a point where they were like, okay, we're going to have to step in here. This is going in the complete wrong path, or complete wrong trajectory. You know, we can't allow this to continue, kind of thing. Like when we talked about with the blondes, with the whole, you know, nuclear war is bad kind of thing. You know, or maybe that was the UFO battle of 1519 or whatever episode we were talking about. But I could imagine that they had reached a point where, you know, maybe they were trying to integrate orichalcum into their society, and they were like, you know, maybe we can help you guys with technology and all this stuff, but now you're taking it a completely wrong direction. This is a, you know, morally negative path that you guys are going down, and we're gonna have to shut it down, kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. My theory is Atlantis was a blonde colony. It was made from the blondes. That's why their technology was so advanced and stuff. And they got to the point where they actually did cause like a nuclear, like a Holocaust or something that like reset shit. And that's why they're so gun ho now, being like, "Hey, stop doing this. This is horrible."
Yeah.
Because they've been through it.
Yeah.
And that's why they're like so against it.
That would make sense, and maybe that's probably why they're still here. You know. They didn't just leave this planet or whatever. They're still here. Yeah. They're trying to warn us and trying to keep us on the right track and stuff. I could totally see that. Yeah. And at the very least, I mean, because one of the things about the blondes is that they're very human-like looking. So it's entirely possible that they integrated with this culture and the society, and they were sharing everything and interbreeding with them and all this stuff, and they became a part of it. And then the Dark Pyramid got destroyed, or the Dark Pyramid like malfunctioned, and, you know, it caused an end to this, you know, caused tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, whatever, that ended up destroying this society, this culture. And yeah. And now the ones that are left, the blondes that are left, are like, you know, we just happened to be out of town when this, you know, when that shit happened. You know, we were over in Alaska when you guys were, you know, messing around with this. And yeah, I could totally see that. So, all right.
What do you think? What's your theory?
I mean, the theory I like the most is basically the one that we've been putting together this whole episode, is that, you know, Atlantis had a black pyramid, or a dark pyramid. Atlantis was a spaceport / you know, hub for the aliens to, you know, get resources to power their space travel or time travel endeavors or whatever. They're using this orichalcum as, you know, something, and it's, you know, it's all connected, right? And this, and the deeper you go into the world, the closer you get to the hollow earth, and more orichalcum.
Was it an accident or was it planted? I mean, we got all the orichalcum we want. Let's get rid of this place and just go on.
I really like what Tor said there at the end, that this was that the blondes actually lived there.
So it was an accident then?
And that's an accident happened, and maybe that caused them to say, okay, we need to move underground to continue our operations.
The blondes got lazy and they let the people take over for a while, and like they blew up the Dark Pyramid. They're like, oh, well, we won't do that again.
Yeah, maybe they trusted the humans with too much information, and the humans thought they knew what they were doing, and they didn't, and, you know, something happened. And...
Or
you know, that
maybe it's like a Chernobyl. They it had a meltdown, and it's radiated, but it's not radiation for us. It's just radiation for them, so they can't go back. And they were forced to move out.
That's possible too, and that radiation could lead to all sorts of other, all sorts of other kind of natural disasters and things and whatnot, and maybe that led to it being buried or submerged or whatever. But it's not
Maybe
something.
It caused one of the volcanoes to erupt.
Yeah, it could have been that. Even like the vibrations could have upset the tectonic plates or the earth and rumbled the volcano, set it off earlier than they expected the volcano to erupt, and so they didn't plan for it, and they had to retreat their city down under, or retreat their operation down under the water.
Move, get out of Dodge.
Yeah, so anyway, that's kind of what I just like this whole theory that we've been putting together. I mean, what do I think is probably true is that probably, what was that location called? The Richat structure in Mauritania, the Eye of Sahara. Yeah, the Eye of the Sahara. That seems to be, based on what I watched and what I saw, there's a lot of maps and geological studies and stuff of the area that really seem to line up with this idea of a culture, living there, and the size of the place and the rings and the, sea levels and the salt and all that stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things that kind of line up with that possibly being this Atlantis location that happened to get destroyed by a volcanic eruption combined with a tsunami or whatever. And just a freak incident that kind of led to that. And I think it's, as far as the orichalcum, it's probably possible that it's just a mix of metals, whatever. I don't know if it's necessarily its own thing. But yeah, that could be why we haven't really discovered orichalcum as its own resource, because it's actually a mix of these two alloys or something, melted down together. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. That's not as fun though. That's not as cool. So I like the other one better. Plus, we came up with it. So
cool one.
we really should create essentially a Bible of all of our theories, how they all connect and how they go together and everything. I think that would be so cool. When we get to episode 100 or something, we connect all of them together into a whole review. The full-grown pizza, historical analysis of the world. Yep, that would be freaking awesome. All right, guys, we are gonna call the episode there. That was episode 19 of the Full Grown Pizza Podcast on Atlantis. Thank you guys for joining. Make sure to hit the like, follow, and subscribe button. Real quick, because there's actually some of the pictures I didn't mention where we got them, so I quickly want to just give reference to those. The Strait of Gibraltar picture that we got, I got that from Britannica. The mythical orichalcum was just our AI image that we generated. That was actually real photograph imagery from ancient Egypt, or the Greek. Yeah, I happened to find this rare historical document. Yeah, yeah. Exactly. She just handed me this and said, she said, look, you're going to need this one day. All right. Just don't question it. You're going to, and I just happened to come across it. The Cadiz, Spain, image we got from, I believe it was a Visit Spain, sort of thing, or no, it was the, what was it called? There was a journal, a Spanish journal website. I got it from, and then Cyprus, that was, I mentioned, that was from the dude's book, this one. Yeah, so I think that was about it. And then this is obviously the aliens harvesting the orichalcum with some kind of blue nano light technology. It's also a historical picture, factual. And then this is the spaceport. They're using using Atlantis as a spaceport facility, obviously historical as well. So,
yeah, the moon was that big and fucking that close to the fucking Earth.
Yep, at that time. Yep, this is historical, accurate information. So
the tides were crazy.
That's what led to Atlantis being submerged. So
yeah,
exactly. No, but all right. Again, thanks for tuning in, you guys. That was a fun episode. Make sure to hit the like, follow, subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you know when we go live every week. Make sure to check out our other social media. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the past couple weeks have been really busy for me personally as far as work goes, so we haven't been able to post as much on those, but make sure to follow over there as well. That's where we post a lot of shorts and clips and stuff from the episodes. So, all right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll end it there.
Outro.